Good morning, everybody. We have a quorum. I think, Bill Posner said he couldn't come. All right, so I'm going to call to order the, Town of Concord Transportation Advisory Committee, meeting of October 28th, 2025. The meeting is being recorded. Let me start with a roll call, of members. Nick here, Ellen,
Here.
Mariana.
Here.
Anybody online?
Rebecca.
Rebecca, yes, hi Rebecca, thank you. You're here, and myself, Mark Galis. Okay, we had, yes, we have some minutes to approve. Did anyone have amendments or corrections?
No.
No? Okay, so let's
Move to accept the minutes.
second, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Nick,
Aye.
Ellen,
Aye.
Rebecca,
Aye.
Mariana,
Aye.
and myself, aye. Okay, great.
And minutes for today. Who's gonna take?
Oh, do we have any volunteers? Do today's minutes? I know Mariana just did last time.
Okay.
You'll do it?
I'm happy to.
Bravo.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm gonna keep the chair report very short, because we have a lot of things to go through and we want to allow enough time. I wanna, mention that there were two letters came in, to TAC, one about, truck traffic on Conant Street, I think, and the other one about concerns about safety for places where pedestrians and e-bikes share spaces. And I distributed those to the members, asked Heather to send them out. The other thing I want to mention again is highlight to people that there is going to be a 4 to 5:30 meeting in the townhouse this afternoon to go over systems and actions to be taken with regard to highway maintenance and safety improvements. And that'll be a joint meeting with Public Works Commission, Select Board, and TAC. And without further delay, I'm going to ask Lisa if she would introduce our Stantec consultant to go through the first draft of a transportation strategy plan presented to Concord. And because the slide deck is 23 pages long, I'm going to suggest that we hold questions until the presenters kind of run through the slides, no more than a minute a slide, kind of give us an overview of the whole thing, so we kind of get the whole gestalt, and then we can go back with TAC questions.
Okay, we have a slightly different way that we were gonna go through
Okay,
them.
what do you suggest?
What
do you
I would suggest is it's roughly split into, I think, 7 sections, and each section is split into sort of key findings and then preliminary strategies.
Mhm.
And so we thought we could spend about 10 minutes on each section so that you all have a chance to give us your feedback. We have some handouts that we'd like to use to capture anything that we don't get to discuss today with the committee, if that would work for you.
I think that's going to drag. I really would like a quick, why don't you give us a very short overview of the sections, and then we can go back. Because, I'd like to see the entire structure, and we could easily get bogged down with a lot of questions on one thing. So why don't you just kind of describe the sections, and then we can go back section by section.
Okay, that'll work too.
All right.
And give it a try.
Yeah, give it a shot. Yeah.
Hi, Mark. So, yes, I wanted to introduce and welcome our Stantec team, Liza Cohen and Tim Dowling. They are transportation planners from the Urban Mobility Group, from Stantec, the Boston office. And Liza in particular has been working on this plan, started in 2023. It was put on pause for just over a year while there were some staffing changes. Now we're, excited to start it up again. It started just last month, where the team has regrouped and done some additional analysis and updated data where it was appropriate and feasible. So we're really interested in hearing TAC's feedback, helping to prioritize some of the strategies, and kind of getting your feedback on, feasibility. So with that, I'll turn it over to Liza.
Great, and Tim, can you hand out, so we have, these little handouts. So when Elisa shared the deck with you all, she indicated that this is kind of how we'd like to structure the discussion, is to hear from you all on the level of impact that you think the strategies that we've listed here would have, and then level of feasibility, so things like cost and space and overall town sentiment are all things that play into feasibility. So
Well, Mr. President, if
Yeah.
I think we've got omission,
Okay, I
and
got
you're
it,
not
I got it.
stated active, or I wanna pose a different phrasing or framework, would just wait to the end, or how you gonna do that?
I think we can chat about it as we go through
Oh,
each section to the best of our abilities, and then there's actually a space, so there's a little sheet for each section, and there's a space on there that says other thoughts, so you could write it down
I
there
actually have a handout.
as well. Does that make sense?
Do you want me to make more
copies for you? Oh, but so we've got these,
No.
Or more.
oh, to give to us.
No, to kind of frame what I'm saying, unfortunately, I don't have it like.
She created her own.
I see, okay,
We'll get there.
okay.
Thank you.
So
I'm sorry to interrupt. This is Rebecca. I'm a member of TAC. Is it possible to get a copy virtually for those of us who are online?
Email us, Elisa?
Yes,
This presentation?
yeah,
No, the,
let me,
Do you want to email me the handout and then?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, the handout, so there's the presentation, so he's actually handing out two things, one is the presentation, which is gonna be up, and one is the handout.
Okay, I did not get the handout.
Yeah, one more hand.
I have a copy of the presentation. It's the handout that I'm most interested in.
yep,
If it's
Yeah,
available.
I'll send it
Thank
to you, Rebecca, as soon as I get it.
All right, thank you.
Sure. So everyone has a pack, you have a handout and the copy of the presentation. Everyone has it? Okay, great. So the handout is for you to make notes
Mhm.
where, where there isn't time to cover everything, just to have this ability to kind of document your feedback and notes and provide just an input. I should have, do you have anything?
Rebecca, I'm just sending the PDF to Elisa.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Excuse
the
me,
reminder.
this is Dan Schrager. Hi, I'm Dan Schrager. I'm also on the TAC virtually. Could you send me that handout as well?
Sure,
yeah, you might as well send it, if you
Yeah, I'll
could send
send
it to
it to all of
Dan
them.
and yeah, I'll type.
Great.
And Joe can make that.
Thank
you. Thanks, Dan, welcome.
Thank you.
all right. Thanks for the reminder, folks online. So, thank you all for taking the time to meet with us today. I know you all are busy, and this project is super important. So as Elisa mentioned, my name is Liza Cohen. I'm a principal with Stantec. Been working on multimodal, transportation planning projects for, over 10 years now. I'm joined by Tim, who's been doing a ton of really great analysis as a part of this work. So, can everyone see my screen online? Rebecca, Dan, you guys good?
Yep, I see it.
Okay, great. So the document that was emailed to you and that you have before you is sort of a preliminary list of strategies. This is by no means a draft of the plan or the final plan. We essentially went through, as Elisa said, updating the existing conditions data that we have, tried to identify what we thought were the key findings and ways in which Concord's mobility networks were not meeting the goals that the community had identified earlier on in the process today, and then came up with some strategies that we thought could address those goals. And so these analyses kind of coalesce around 6 main topic areas. So those are listed on this slide: travel patterns, crashes, pedestrian bicycle network, roadway maintenance and policy, also transit thrown in there. And then, as mentioned before, each of the sections kind of lists those key findings and then some strategies to address those. What we would like to hear from you is which of these strategies do you think would be most impactful to address the identified needs or opportunity, right, to get closer to your goals? Which would be challenging to implement and why, and which would be kind of low hanging fruit, like, let's get going on doing this. And the good news is that the town has already started a lot of initiatives that are addressing some of the issues that we identified. So as Lisa mentioned, project started in 2023 and kind of went on hold as we had completed our existing conditions analysis. And we actually held a public forum as well and did an online survey. So the community has had a chance to weigh in on a lot of this data and help us kind of refine and provide that on the ground perspective on that. What we have completed today is updating some of that existing conditions data, right? Trying to refresh the crash analysis, and then identifying kind of key findings and gaps toward how that data is indicating how you're doing against the goals. And we're here with you, as I mentioned, with kind of our initial list of strategies and ideas. We're also integrating a lot of the work that the community has done already through a variety of different processes. So those are broad ranging plans like Envision Concord, as well as more specific things like the MDI process that's going on, or sorry, MCI, MDI is something else. But so trying to kind of pull all of that together and make sure that we're not, rehashing something that's already been figured out. So just to kind of reemphasize, this is where we are in the schedule, right? So we haven't even started putting together the final transportation strategy. We're kind of in the identify preliminary strategies stage. We will be back in town in less than a month for a public forum on these strategies. So looking forward to hearing kind of more general thoughts on those. And that's going to be a morning and an evening session on the 19th. So more scooter train travel for us. At our forum in 2023, we pulled in some of the goals from Envision Concord that the community had already identified and asked folks at the forum to weigh in on those, rank them. We've since worked with the town to kind of refine those and identify the goals that are listed on this slide today as kind of goals for Concord's mobility system. So I won't read all of these to you, but some of the key ones are reducing motor vehicle dependence and investing in targeted safety improvements. So those are two things that we've heard a lot about recently and that of course are echoed through many of your other planning efforts. So kicking things off in the issues and strategies section. So as Mark requested, I think what I'm going to do, just so we have enough time, is I will blaze through these. I'll do my best to do it in about 10 minutes. I can talk fast. And then I would like to come back and talk about each kind of strategy area if
Thanks.
we're able to
Yeah,
do
it's
that.
good for us to kind of get at least
Yeah.
for me to get a sense of how the pieces fit together.
Yeah, so, and the answer is they might not totally yet, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
we're still at the
absolutely.
preliminary stages. So,
Absolutely.
one of the things that we wanted to look at to kick things off is just how do people travel around Concord today, right? And the short answer to that is a lot of people are driving a lot of the time, whether they're commuting to work, traveling in town. There are a lot of trips being made by car. But survey data from the public indicates that people would love to walk, to bike, to take transit more, to have more options. So we're not necessarily saying everyone needs to get rid of their car, but people would like to see other options be as viable as driving. So some of our strategies here are again at a very high level and mostly at a policy level, although that third bullet sort of filters through the rest of the plan, right? You should improve other infrastructure, create those abilities to make other choices. But also, there's programming that you can do, transportation demand management, starting with large employers, and just encouraging development in kind of more sustainable patterns that can help support these transportation options. We looked at transit. You have 2 commuter rail stations in town. That's amazing. When we look at ridership at those commuter rail stations, particularly what's interesting is looking at recovery patterns compared to the COVID lockdowns and today. In Concord, the recovery has not been as strong as other stations along the, I guess now Wachusett line. And so that's one thing that kind of like caught our eye that we're interested in. And then other than that, your transit options are fairly limited, right? There's Council on Aging van. There was a pilot trolley a while ago. But we know that there aren't a lot of options in town. So I think this is one thing where the town doesn't necessarily have control over the commuter rail, but can support some of the MBTA's ongoing initiatives to improve its commuter rail service. Looking at why people are not using the commuter rail from a access perspective. So is it easy to walk, bike, take transit even to and from the stations today? I think a lot of you would have a lot to say about that. Looking at, again, kind of policies that can support commuter rail use, and then consider looking at expanding what is today the Council on Aging ban to locally operated and supported transit options. That's something that a lot of communities are looking at now. So that's something that we could look into a bit more. And then generally, interestingly, from the public, we heard, hey, I didn't know about this thing. I didn't know that this existed. I don't know how to use transit. So improving marketing, making using those services a little bit easier for folks. Tim did a really excellent detailed crash analysis. So looking at updated data. And again, like this is kind of looking at MassDOT's latest data set. You can get as detailed as you like in crash analysis, but overall, you've had hundreds of crashes on your streets over the last 5 years that have resulted in injuries or fatalities. And so that indicates an issue that needs to be addressed. We've identified, the top locations are, of course, the streets crossing Route 2, but once you take Route 2 out of the equation, other streets start to rise to the top. And then we can start to look at this by mode as well. Vehicle crashes that involve somebody walking, vehicle crashes that involve somebody biking, and start to kind of pinpoint hotspots. So some of our recommendations are to conduct a more detailed assessment of these crashes to start to understand why they're occurring. Again, as I mentioned, you can get really in depth there. You can look at near misses. You can really go crazy and start to understand kind of the root cause of some of these things. In order to make walking feel more comfortable, as well as to address these safety issues, there are short-term fixes that the town could pursue, as well as long-term investments. I'll talk about this at the end, but the town has developed an asset management plan to upgrade road and sidewalk infrastructure. And so we think that presents an opportunity to kind of marry those two initiatives. And then, of course, working with MassDOT closely as they have embarked on an initiative to re-examine many of the intersections of Route 2 that are right here in Concord, including at the MCI, not DI site. Related to this, we looked at this 29 different ways for walking, had a really fun time with the data, but in general, we heard from people walking and rolling, using a wheelchair, mobility device, pushing a stroller in Concord is not always the most comfortable. And if you look at how long walk trips are today and how many people drive for short trips, you could argue that walking is somewhat of an underutilized mode in town. So trying to look at how we could address that. From the asset management plan, we have great data on sidewalk conditions, and the town has been working on prioritizing locations in which to upgrade sidewalks. So some of our recommendations for this are to develop some metrics, hold yourselves accountable, think about the goals that you would like to achieve with your walking network, investing in missing sidewalks, investing in sidewalk repair. In some of the locations, again, overlap with high crash intersections, but we've started to identify some tools that can be used. We know that you have some historic districts, so there's a little bit of concern with like putting rapid rectangular flashing beacons, as they are called, RFBs in the biz, everywhere. So there are other tools that can be used to address walk safety and make it easier for people to get across what are some, frankly, wide roads. That's something also that we often hear from folks with mobility issues, is that when you're trying to cross a street that's 35 feet wide, that distance can feel yawning, can feel huge. And so trying to address that a little bit. And then continuing ongoing work, which is something I can talk more about, but the town is also in the midst of a process to identify a way to be more transparent about how it deals with requests related to safety issues for people walking, biking, and driving generally on town streets. We looked at biking, and the way that we looked at biking is through what's called a bicycle level of traffic stress analysis. And so this is a methodology that was identified back in 2012 and has been refined and can be adapted based on the data that's available. But it essentially looks at street width, number of lanes, number of cars using a street, and creates an index of how comfortable it might be to bike on the street. So a small, narrow residential street like Partridge Lane shown here has bicycle level of comfort, or level of stress, excuse me. So the scale is stress. So 4 is very stressful and 1 is not that stressful. But anyway, the upshot of it all is that a street like this is relatively low stress compared to Walden Street near Route 2, right? So if you're riding a bike or a scooter or what have you on that street, you would feel stressed. And what we're trying to do is, if you look at the chart on the right-hand side, think about streets that are suitable for, you know, stress level 2, stress level 1, ideally starting to create a comfortable bicycle network that connects across Concord. So we applied this methodology across all of town. And what that does is helps us identify hotspots that, if you kind of string them together, can help you create a connected, maybe east-west, north-south, to key destinations bicycle network, instead of trying to identify, because we just don't have the data and analysis, full, you know, links. You can start to drill down on, okay, if we suddenly address this high stress segment, that would connect these longer low stress segments and start to build your bicycle network that way. So we've completed that analysis. That's new since 2023. So some of our ideas, as I mentioned, is those targeted infrastructure improvements in high stress areas. We've identified a menu of options. I'm sure you all in your travels have seen others that could be added to this list. Again, Route 2 crossings, big here. We heard about that quite a bit at the public forum. Consider expanding the existing bicycle share, particularly as cycling facilities improve, right? So Tim and I could have taken the train here today and jumped on a bike. And then one important thing about biking is, you know, with the rise of e-bikes and folks having nice bikes, bicycle parking, secure, plentiful, convenient. So we have, the town is already honestly miles ahead of many towns in the Commonwealth by having data on where its bike parking is. We're able to look at that and say, hey, you might want to expand this, whereas most towns have to start with, where is it? Which is great. So this starts to get at more of the asset management plan. So in 2023, when we began this, you all had not completed that work, but what we heard from folks is, hey, our roads are not up to par. They are cracked, they are bumpy, sidewalks are in need of repair. Since then, the town has identified streets that are in need of repair through a prioritization process that took into account both like the actual condition of the road, as well as the public engagement from 2023, where people said they wanted to go, some other key assets in town. So it's a very cool asset management process. Most communities really only do it based on pavement condition. So this is very unique and nifty that you guys have done. And this provides a roadmap for addressing some of these higher priority locations. And so by pursuing those and aligning with everything else that's in this plan, this provides kind of a short term, right? Asset management plan is just how you're going to spend money on roadway improvements in the next 5 years, but it's a short term way to start to address some of these issues that have been identified through, for example, the crash analysis. In the asset management plan are also some areas for sidewalk repair, as well as some intersections. So there's, you know, street links, right? And then intersections, and then the sidewalks. It's kind of 3 different things, but intersections that have risen to the top as high priority to kind of revisit their design, and at the very least, revisit their paving job. Finally, looking at regional coordination, there's not a lot of that going on today. Some communities have found that, for example, by working together, they've been able to implement kind of locally operated transit services or do group procurement, that kind of thing. Internally, there's also limited coordination, although as I mentioned, the town is, kind of gets into this, but the town is working on establishing a more transparent system for how it addresses safety issues, which is great. There is kind of an ongoing working group that meets and talks about that today. And so expanding that effort. I also think there's room to kind of brag about, advertise things that the town is doing, right? So reporting on progress towards goals, trying to be more clear about some of the improvements that the town is making, you know, maybe being more clear about some of the improvements that you all are recommending. And that can go a long way toward kind of public confidence in what the town is doing. So this is just a comparison of the asset management plan and our planning effort, which I'm happy to get into. But that is the overview. So
Beautiful.
hopefully that
Great job.
helps.
That
10
helps.
minutes? Oh, 11 minutes.
That's, oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that, because one of the things I think people can see is how all these things interact.
Great.
And they come from the same funding pools and things like that. So it's good to be thinking kind of comprehensively there. So you mentioned that there were sections. So what, how, is that, do they correspond to
They
the?
do, so,
Okay.
we would start with, this issue, which is vehicle patterns and how there's quite a lot of driving. And we've identified 3 strategies, which are very high level, but, kind of looking at those. And our question to you is, which of these do you think would have the most impact? Which of these would be the most challenging? And we've given you on your handout, and folks online, Rebecca and Dan, have you received the handout? You're good? Okay. A little chart to kind of help guide the discussion and think about those things. It can be fine to say like, hey, this thing is extremely high impact and extremely challenging to implement. And that's great. Like that's, something we'd like to hear about and the why, and maybe we can help kind of fill in, some things to lower that bar.
How would you like us to give feedback today? Do you want to go one person at a time in the committee, or do you want to go through a section at a time?
Yeah, I'd like to go through a section at a time. So, I can watch the clock here and maybe we can tackle this one for a few minutes and then I'll move us along.
Okay, so
and
this
then,
is the strategies for which?
This is the strategies for your current travel patterns. So there's a lot on this slide, but you
Let me
also
ask a
print
question
out
about
it in front of
strategies.
you. Mhm.
This, I thought I saw some very high level strategies. Like not, this is like strategies for one specific aspect of getting around.
Yeah,
So at the very high level, I didn't see anything that acknowledged the importance and presence of motor vehicles, of cars.
mhm,
They are a huge part. In fact, we just authorized $27 million, 90% of which is to maintain the roads for the cars.
mhm,
It seems to me at a very top level, we have to acknowledge that,
mhm.
doing that and continuing to do it so that the roads don't fall into disrepair is
Absolutely.
a very important strategy for the town.
Yeah,
That has to be a top level strategy.
yeah. So that's a kind of a top level section. We had a whole section on roads in disrepair, and then the asset management plan is, which is what you're talking about, which is the millions of dollars that have been allocated to roadway improvements. So that was the section at the very end.
The statement that's missing is the statement says we're not going to let this happen again.
Okay.
Okay. That it's a continuing strategy of the town to maintain the roads in good repair.
Mhm,
Okay, because the section you have says this is what we're doing now.
mhm.
Okay. Let's
Continue
react.
to update that and, yeah.
Yeah, I would say another thing that would, I don't quite know how to say, because it's woven throughout everything, is that we talk about infrastructure, hardscape in terms of getting people out of their cars to walk or bike.
Mhm.
But that doesn't work in all weathers and all seasons. I think
Totally.
there needs to be more of a very concerted effort to describe public transportation. So getting kids, unfortunately, out of cars, meaning using the school bus, but that's a public service that the schools offer. And I
Mhm,
think public transit is not as focused as I think it could be in here. It's really about, walking on your 2 feet or riding a bicycle, but that is really not gonna necessarily get people out of cars in the winter when it's snow.
Let me pick up on that if you don't mind. Ellen.
Please, go right ahead.
Which is that, we actually did a document, which was a position of attack and explaining the benefits of public transit.
mhm,
And I think it's sorely missing from here, because let's say we're gonna do a bunch of great things for pedestrians and bicycles.
mhm,
It's gonna take quite a few years to get them all done.
mhm,
In the meanwhile, if we had public transit, we could safely cross Route 2,
mhm,
right? So for instance, benefits are things like reducing single occupancy vehicle trips, reduction in traffic volume if you have public transit, reduction in demand for parking spaces, which is a big issue. And if you want to free up bike lanes, you better reduce the number of parking spaces.
mhm,
So if you don't have public transit, how are you going to do that?
mhm,
Mobility for those who are unwilling or unable to drive. Safe option for crossing Route 2. Visitors and tourists can move around town more easily. There's like 5 more.
mhm.
So I think the fact that public transit is a primary strategy and a primary short-term part of the solution is sorely missing from this.
Yeah, so we have it here, but you're right, we don't have a ton of detail. I think
Yeah.
one thing it one thing that can be challenging is structuring it so that it can achieve all of those things that are laid out that are benefits to transit, right? So you guys are not the MBTA. So it can be quite expensive in the feasibility spectrum, if you will. And absolutely, if it's something that there's interest in town that, you know,
If you don't
Folk
start
would
with the
use.
strategy, you won't get the money.
yeah,
right?
totally, yeah,
So I don't want to back off just because, well, it happens to be expensive.
great.
It's a fundamental problem in the state that the point of view is that the operation of public transit should be funded by passenger fares.
Mhm,
That's ridiculous.
Right.
Okay.
totally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you all used any of these locally operated options? Like I know Newton has one, we've listed the Salem Skipper here, there's the Crosstown Connect, so there's lots of different models. And I'm just curious, you know, sort of what you're envisioning. There's fixed route, right? It runs the same route all the time. There's fixed, I think it's like a mix of fixed route and deviated, where so it can runs the same route, but it can like deviate to pick folks up. And then there's more of a micro transit model, which is more of an on-demand service.
Right, I think you have
And-
to study the needs of the town, and the individuals to figure out what mix
Yeah.
is appropriate here.
I
Yeah,
believe,
agreed.
we had actually put in a request kind of early in the study to have an assessment of what similar towns or adjacent towns have done. I mean, Lexington has had public transportation for 40 years. Bedford has some. There was a kind of one that sort of failed to implement in Acton, including Concord too.
Mhm.
I noticed that Paul Baum, our select board
Oh.
liaison, has his hand raised. Paul, would you like to say something?
Yeah, I would. I could save it to the end. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yep,
Okay,
I
All-
can save comments for the end, but just a comment on this section and other sections. I think since this will be a public doc, there are a lot of great strategies and ideas. And I think each section should have a discussion of constraints. For example, you talk about bike lanes. A lot of roads in town are not wide enough for bike lanes. And so I think that's one example. I think you ought to talk about real constraints, not funding per se, but just physical constraints or other constraints that might limit the implementation of some of these, because I really don't want the public looking at this and saying we can do everything. But there are, I mean, aside from the funding limitations, there are, you know, just physical constraints on some of these. So just think about that.
thank you,
Yep.
Paul. Rebecca? You have a comment?
I, first of all, just want to thank Stantec so much for these insights and this work. I know that you guys have been working really hard on it. So I wanted to respond to your specific question about the mode share. So for example, the reduced 73% of in-town Concord trips, which use automobiles by improving infrastructure so more people can choose to walk or bike. That one would have a huge impact for sure, because certainly there are a lot of people, as was pointed out in the report, not making those trips because they don't feel safe walking or biking. But as you're even hearing in this discussion, part of the feasibility challenge is getting agreement on priorities for the town. So I just want to emphasize that town priorities, both within TAC and within staff, in addition to the funding challenges, I really see those as the main challenges for feasibility. Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, Pat Nelson, who's a liaison from the planning board, quickly, if you have a short comment, Pat, we're gonna
Yeah,
move these
just-
along, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Mark, and this is great. But one comment I have, and I may have missed this because the dog started barking, but we had talked about, and I think it'd be really so valuable to get some way of putting together the lessons learned and the best practices from any other towns that are like us, with similar environmental conditions who have implemented transportation in their towns. We know there are a lot of transit, implemented
Okay.
some kind of transit. It's a big job. We've been talking about it for years. I think that would be really helpful.
Thank you, Pat. Mariana, did you have any?
No, I appreciate you all putting this together. It looks like I think this wraps up a lot of the stuff we've been talking about. Definitely good to dig into transit more, and I think that'll be great to get into more as this further develops, but.
Excellent.
Okay, and,
All right.
and Dan, did you have, since you're, on the phone, did you have any comment at this point?
No, I think I'm sorry. I'm driving currently. I'm sorry. I just think it's a great summary.
Be careful.
Yeah, I know.
All right, thanks.
Yes, be safe.
Transportation.
Mark,
I-
one more thing.
yes, of course.
Because I really love the fact that you're talking about the two different things. One is people, the MBTA is really not about Concord, it's about getting into Boston. So that doesn't really, the fact that we don't control that's probably okay. But I think you said, what is it, that 75% of trips are within 2.3 miles. That like screams to me, public transit, council on aging, hop on, hop off trolley, the sort of thing that the Lexpress does.
Mhm.
And I guess I would reiterate that for in-town local, that is the gold standard for getting people out of cars year round.
Great.
I think an important, there are so many constraints in this town about what you can do about bicycle lanes or making the roads safer. The historic constraints, there are topographic constraints. There are places where the ledge comes right down to the roadway.
Mhm.
There are constraints about what you can do to stone walls because of scenic byroads. There are constraints because of shade trees. You'd be amazed how close the trees are to the road. I think it would be very helpful if there were a study done that just did a look at some of the roads and say, isn't much going to be possible on this road
Mhm.
unless you want to spend a hell of a lot of money.
Mhm.
I'll give you an example. Monument Street, after you go past the Old North Bridge, there's a bridge. It is about 18 feet wide. It's barely wide enough for two cars to pass.
Mhm.
I see people and bicyclists on that bridge all the time. It's a long bridge. It's frightening,
Mhm.
right? And that entire street is like that. There are trees right up to the edge of the street. It would be good to know fairly soon whether or not we can do anything on roads like that one. There are
Mhm.
several within the town.
Yeah, and you actually
Because if we can remove them from the discussion, it focuses more on things we can do.
yeah, I think there are things to be done on every street. But what's nice is that from the asset management plan, you have great data on things like roadway, like actual roadway width, right? They drove a truck all around town and did a measurement. So you have that data at your fingertips.
I don't have that data, but I wish. I
No,
did.
no, but it's,
I think it's actually on their dashboard. You might have that.
yeah, you can get, yeah, and more information is going to be put on, publicly available maps and GIS and things like that.
Yeah.
For more input. Yeah, I think kudos to the town, staff for, pulling together both of these, engineering side, nuts and bolts and planning actions. I think it's super important. Two things quick. One thing with regard to MBTA and public transportation, many residents have said that there's difficulty getting from one town center to the other. And I don't see why the MBTA there couldn't be some way that the MBTA would allow people either to ride for free from one town center to the other on the regular train. We got to improve accessibility at the Thorough Depot station. The town could negotiate something. Maybe there would be a $1 fee or $2. I really, we have something that carries people going between the 2,000 centers multiple times a day. Why the hell are we not using it? Going back to what Nick initially said about automobiles, when I see this title here, current travel patterns do not align with goals to reduce motor vehicle dependence. To me, that is one bullet among many, because the public roads are infrastructure for cyclists. They're allowed to go on most, not on Route 2, but on every other road in Concord, that's bicycle infrastructure. And as Nick said, there are constraints between conflicts between ability to put protected bike lanes and parking, but this all interacts to me with idea of motor vehicle flow, including trucks. and large vehicles and also emergency services. And looking at one of these things in isolation, like we're going to reduce motor vehicle dependence, but not addressing the fact that the flow of motor vehicles is problematic and is probably a significant contributor to accidents because people are distracted trying to avoid hitting other cars and they don't see a bicycle coming or a pedestrian. So I do think that flow of motor vehicle traffic and roadway design and loops, like say in West Concord, where Commonwealth Ave is very narrow to, and again, I'm trying to talk about generalities by referring to specifics in order to make the point. I'm not
As an
trying to
example.
say you
Yeah.
should, but making certain roads one way is obviously something that certain towns do. Certain towns make certain roads only pedestrian traffic. And even though there might be outcries, I think we need to put all options on the table. I think we need to have some bold options in various places. I mean, you look at Monument Square, it's not optimum from many points of view, but it's challenging because of historic concerns and cost and et cetera. And we should not immediately neglect things because they might cost a lot of money. That's my thing.
No, that's good feedback, and it might be a perfect transition to talk about crashes and safety. I feel we've
That's
covered
good.
the transit angle. That's okay with folks, so we identified some locations where there were crashes. We know you've unfortunately had some fatalities. And so we've identified some strategies to deal with those. The first is to understand them better, and then some temporary improvements at high crash locations could go out much more quickly than some of the longer term things, to your point. As well as, of course, the focus on Route 2. And we think there's a great opportunity. The town's been working with MassDOT on the Route 2 redesign, and so having
I
a,
would object to that statement.
okay,
The town gave feedback because the original plan they proposed was to add 2 more lanes for a total of 6 at all of the crossing points where we're concerned about pedestrians crossing safely.
mhm,
We gave feedback, and we sent a letter, the town did, that we created in TAC, sent a letter to the state as part of our feedback in that process. That was many months ago. There's been no discussion since then. I would say it's quite a stretch to say that there's any discussion or interaction going on that project, okay?
Lisa, do you want to talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, I guess I would say that that there is actually a lot of coordination happening right now around,
Why doesn't TAC know about it?
well, I'm here to kind of talk about it now.
Heck would like to know, Heck would like to be more.
So basically MassDOT is exploring redesign, options, especially around the rotary. They are looking at short-term kind of improvements that will help with pedestrian access and kind of help with the traffic flow through that rotary as well. They haven't finalized their plan, but they have been talking with the town, Public Works and, staff about their plans. And they are also looking at improvements in a couple of intersections around crossing Route 2 and including some bicycle and pedestrian improvements. So they are actually working on that now. They haven't shared final plans with regard to that, but they are actually working on that. And we haven't, it's actually happening now. So it's very real time. It's only been happening in the last couple of months that we've heard any have heard from them. So just wanted to share that. It is actively being worked on. It is fairly recent. There was a long pause where we didn't hear anything, and it's only been recently coming up. And it is based on feedback from town staff to MassDOT directly that we are hearing from the public. We're hearing that these things need to be addressed. We directly brought up the bicycle and pedestrian safety issue crossing Route 2. And frankly, MassDOT did hear us and they are working on it. So,
It's good to hear.
Yeah.
It's good to hear, but it's unfortunate that it's taken 2 months for TAC to find out about it.
Well, we'd like to, no, we definitely want to hear more about it. I know that, it's my impression there's some challenge with MassDOT that until they have a preliminary mapped out design, they don't like to share things with the public. This is a weakness of MassDOT in general, I think. They talk about transparency. It's one of the least transparent agencies in the state, and it has a lot of responsibility. It has multiple divisions, including MBT, et cetera, that don't talk to each other. So anyway. enough.
So, but to bring it back to this planning effort, I think one of the recommendations here that the town is actively working on is to have a strong opinion that so you're not
Yes,
just coming
yeah.
to meetings and reacting, that you're going into the meetings and, pulling from the TAC.
We want
notes
TAC
and
wants to be
having,
involved. Anybody object to that? No.
staff, but also like staff having opinions and, being
One
able
of
to
the things that we
communicate
use,
that to us.
even at a high level, what the options are, because I mean, otherwise we just hear stuff like, okay, we can use the railroad tunnel to put a pedestrian bridges or a bridge over Route 2, like the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail. So, or just at level, safer crossings of Route 2. It would be great to even get like a list of what the options are, so we can begin to think about it.
Yeah.
And I know I'd say that we kind of get that everything's not exactly, ribbon tied around or anything to do with MassDOT, but it just would be useful.
okay, yeah, no, that's good feedback. And, honestly, it's just, maybe we can talk about what, agendas and what makes sense and how to,
Exactly.
communicate this information. It definitely wasn't something that we're,
I think-
not sharing on purpose.
No,
It's just
but
everything
I
is
think,
happening
I
at
think
very
you
rapid
can
speed.
take back a consensus from TAC
Mm-hmm.
to MassDOT, that TAC is very anxious to hear more about this. And so, and that might put a tiny bit of pressure on you.
So can I ask a question, just going back to kind of how we're trying to frame this discussion in terms of impact, in terms of feasibility?
Mhm.
It sounds like, and we heard this at the public meeting, like those Route 2 intersections really do have a huge impact on how people move around town. So that's
Choices
very
people
high
make.
on
Yes,
the,
it's
on the
very-
impact
That
of
went
this.
back to when we put together the long range plan, which I was part of. We were getting huge amounts of feedback about that, and it was 8 years ago.
Right,
Mhm.
so it's been an issue for sure. Okay, great. So any other sort of high impact strategies listed here or things that you think would actually not be that impactful? Or feasibility challenges?
Well, I think one of the things that maybe you've got it in here and it's just like, look, I don't.
Oh, you can't absorb the 4,000.
No, it's not great. The acronyms are like, they kind of wash over my head. And I was in high tech, so I'm used to high acronyms. But anyway, it would be great to look at the roadways in terms of what the speed should be. What we do is, I forget the term for it, but like, you track the speed and then make it 80%, which is just reinforcing bad habits.
Right, and
Especially
let's,
for cut through vehicles.
Mhm.
So I think a lot of it, and this is kind of Upland Street, is, what is the right speed? How do we then do various traffic calming solutions? And maybe in some places you can't do chicanes or whatever the heck it is we do. Chicanes, yeah. Shenanigans,
Speed
I
bumps.
think, to make the road be just automatically slow people down. So I think people will slow down if there's traffic tables or something. So again, it would be nice to say, what is the right speed? And then maybe try short-term solutions.
Mhm.
That's what Upland did, lots of signs. And then what are the progress toward a longer-term solution? That would be awesome.
I think you're hitting the nail on the head in terms of what we were saying earlier, and I think I saw your head nodding in terms of reporting, right? Because that's a really relatively
Yeah.
easy stat to report on, like, here's the speed on this street, we did X intervention, here's the speed on the street now. So even if X intervention is very annoying, it's having this
Well,
impact. on
even
speeds.
before that, what is
Right,
the
you need
right
the
speed
before.
on Old Marlboro Road? That's a classic one.
Mhm.
It's got, I don't know how many different speed limits when you go between, Upland and then the middle school.
Mhm.
It's nuts and people give up because they can't figure it out.
I think we should
Yep.
stop talking about speed limits and talk about actual speeds.
Design speed, yeah.
And
What-
and
what
whether
is
or not
the-
we're achieving them.
What
Mhm.
is the speed we want
Mhm.
and how can we achieve it?
Mhm.
And that's a safety question. To me, safety is what the metric is,
Yep.
should be in most of these things.
Totally.
Yeah, safety is very important. I think, again, when, we don't want fatalities to be the metric.
Right.
We've got to get ahead of that. And one of the things, you know, I mean, obviously this is very important data, and I'm really glad for it. I think it's super important, but I'd also like to see more about what the volume flow of motor vehicles is, including especially trucks. I don't know how many people have a feeling that trucks are a issue in themselves in terms of
Well, I live on
parking,
Route 62,
people who do lawn work and block roads, and a two-way road becomes a one-way road with blind turn. That's something where we live. And, you know, delivery trucks change this town center into a different traffic flow in the morning, et cetera. And these are like right in front of us, and they need to be considered. And there may be policies about use, and also the naive, well, people may drive fast some places because they know they're gonna wait 10 minutes at another intersection. And if they could know that they can flow through smoothly, maybe they can be encouraged to go slower.
Yeah, it's issues like trucks, I think is very important, especially like you come across a landscaper's truck that's parked for an hour on a 2-lane road that has, you know, 9-inch, I feel like 9-inch, 9-foot lanes, right? And and there are bicyclists.
Yeah, no.
And you're forced to go around the landscaper's truck. I mean, that has to be taken into consideration.
One thought I had in terms of, I don't know which heading it would be, but you know, the word multimodal means different things to different people. A statistician would say it means one thing, and some people think it means 4 different lanes for different types of vehicles, et cetera. And in Concord, we have all these constraints, as was mentioned. But I think to me, some language matters, and saying that we want to enhance function and safety for all of the individual modes of mobility in the public way, or something like that. We need to be kind of understanding, you know, I can visualize, you know, blue lines moving and green lines and yellow lines, and where they cross is where a lot of these accidents happen. And another thing is about, you know, consistency, that people know what the rules are, or what, you know, it happens in many fields. If you make it easy to do the right thing, more people do the right thing. If you make it hard to do the right thing, you have to read 5 signs and.
Right.
One of the things we do need in town in terms of traffic calming is there's been historically staff in the engineering department, roads department, has been very resistant, and the public safety people, to any kind of speed bumps or speed hits like that. And I think that has to stop. I think I have driven through communities where there are speed bumps that are no more than an inch tall that are very effective in a 25-mile-an-hour zone. I've been through communities where they have very gradual ramps on longer sections, like a crosswalk. And those are very effective. It's enough to get the driver's attention without causing you to, you know, an accident.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. It's a great
that whole
tool.
issue of speed bumps in this town is just ridiculous.
Yeah, I think there's been some misinformation floating around when it needs to be kind of pinned down, who is concerned for what reason, and I do feel like there's some reexamination. There's also things going on in Massachusetts. I'm not sure if it's on a pilot basis or whatever, about allowing towns to have some number of automatic enforcement locations and strategizing them near schools or certain places.
And so I want to add one thing on what Mark, you were saying about multimodal, and that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. I think we're talking about things as though it's single use, bicycles, pedestrians, road. And to me, the real challenge is everything's multimodal in the public way. And how do you assure safe travel for everyone? And so I was at one of the, I guess, a meeting, and something said that really struck me as like, on roads, cars crowd out bicycles. And on shared use paths, bicycles crowd out pedestrians. And I think if we have a discussion around that, how do you assure safety for all? Then, because sometimes connectivity, like I want to be able to get from point A to point B in my car across Concord, means cut through. It means higher flow, higher speeds. The same thing with the shared use path. you can often say if connectivity is prioritized, it might mean that higher speed traffic crowds out people who are more vulnerable. So
Mhm.
that's, I mean, I can talk about it later, but that's a real talk, along with multi-use. I think that safety should be it, safety for all.
Mhm. Yep, I like that. So related to that, again, you guys are making
Okay,
these
good, good, good.
transitions on your own. But so we looked at, and yes, this is just really to be able to have this conversation. We broke this down by pedestrian. So looking at some of the pedestrian related infrastructure, but to your point, it's, you know, the streets are for everybody. But some of the ideas for making it easier to walk, to roll around town. I think highlighting speed tables, speed bumps, and kind of how those could be integrated here, didn't call them out explicitly in the list, and we can do a better job of that. I think that's good, and those can be, again, they don't require flashing lights, so they can be maybe deployed in some locations where flashing lights would be a challenge, or you're trying to have something that's a little bit less intrusive on the environment. There's also, you know, a million other proven safety countermeasures, as they're called, or I'm not sure I got all those words in the right order, but something along those lines, to address, generally to make people walking more visible to people driving, and to help people driving drive at the speeds that you would like them to drive, which ideally is, you know, 20 miles an hour and below in locations where you have a lot of people walking.
Yeah, I really like the stuff you put in about metrics around or numbers around within certain distances. It makes
Mhm.
sense
Yeah.
to have more walking and to prioritize the walkability.
Mhm,
But there's one statement in there that says 10 minutes to walk half a mile.
mhm.
I don't think so.
No. Yeah, yeah, that might have been a mismatch.
That's a brisk.
Yeah, that
Um,
was, it took me longer than that today to walk there
Yeah.
from the station, so that might have been,
What
I
does,
think.
Pedestrians will get there faster than car.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be much more reliable
Right.
sometimes,
What-
depending on where you're crossing.
What does RRFB? stand
Sorry, rapid rectangular flashing
Would you-
beacon, it's
okay,
those
see,
things.
It's a flash.
Yes, it's where you
is a-
push the button
Is there?
and there's usually a sign on each side that has a yellow
Oh,
Right.
diamond.
The rail trail crossing.
the real.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
and then there's the
What's it called? Rapidly
rapid rectangular flashing beacon,
RRFD.
RRFB beacon. Mhm.
But I mean, the idea of,
Mhm.
I like this idea of neighborhood calm streets. People
Yeah.
need to, there are a lot of those, and we need to encourage sharing and people kind of taking care of each other.
Mhm.
But that's another thing too, where a a speeding delivery truck trying to make too many rounds, or the lawn care blockages
Yeah.
and things, are a factor. We gotta keep our eyes open. look at all
And
these
what
things.
happens in that case is that, you know, I've been in the situation where I've been refusing to go around something. And
Mhm.
somebody's beeping at me, or even a bicyclist is saying, come around, I'm thinking, okay, who am I gonna kill, you or them?
Right, yeah.
What is the trolley problem?
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's sort of, you know, that's the problem when you have too many, it's not well defined, and that's part of what Mark's saying. You don't know what the rules should be.
Mhm. It's funny, there's a whole contingent of people who would argue that that situation can sometimes be safer because it
Well, yes,
requires
I
you to
don't-
slow down and make
You
eye
just
contact
stop
and
and
all
I
that stuff.
refuse, I get
Yeah.
that.
Well, I do think some efforts I've seen in urban areas, and it isn't always successful, but it seems like the intent is actual, or the outcome is to have many more crashes at lower speed. And I'm not sure if that's the goal we want,
Mhm.
because things get so complicated.
Yeah.
Um, okay, yes, go ahead, Mary.
Suppose we take a 2-minute stretch break since this is a long meeting.
Absolutely.
Sorry if that
Love it.
interrupts the flow.
No, absolutely. Well, getting blood flow to the brain is a good thing.
Yes.
And I hear, oh, no, sugar. Boost. Oh, my God.
Early in the
Somebody-
morning.
My neighborhood
Oh,
used to
good.
be like Halloween Central.
I'll look at it.
Then Central Street closed off the street. And so I've got a friend who moved from Central Street to my street, and she used to have like hundreds of kids, and now nobody, and she feels worried, she feels lonely.
Visitors.
No, but kids, what happens,
Yeah.
everyone inundates. the center.
What happens is they all go to one place or another.
Right.
Like, it's like, where's the neighborhood? And I have lived in the neighborhood.
Oh,
Now I live in not the neighborhood.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I
You
even
know?
had, like, I had a haunted house in my, you know, my kids were little,
Yes.
there's fortune tellers. I know, it doesn't help. Again, like, better things for the use of my time.
People where I used to live, they're bringing their kids and they all go out and I get rid of a hole this big. It
Oh,
was
actually,
so fun.
I don't even know who did this, but the track or treat,
Oh, yeah, Trevor.
like, I'm doing that, I'm all by myself, nobody else.
That's the visitor center.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna be at the MCI, at the Virgin Rail, my little hat and cape. It's like, I love that. It's just really a very festive way to do Halloween.
Mhm. Should be good.
Very nice.
I think the rain is holding off until
Oh, I
then
don't
too.
know.
Oh,
So
that's good.
My
I think
kids
it's
don't care.
tomorrow, so I think it'll be okay.
I would have put out a sign that said, full-size candy bars, come in. You know, maybe I'll do that. Or you can take 3, come in.
That would probably work.
Oh, I love Halloween because there's absolutely no purpose whatsoever, since, you know, watch all the kids in the same costume.
We used to drive our kids to other neighborhoods where they had better,
Yes.
better candy.
Kids
Oh,
figure
yeah.
that really fast.
Absolutely. I lived on Beacon Hill when I first moved to Boston, which goes crazy for Halloween.
Oh, yeah.
And because people come in and trick or treat and
Well,
everyone
it's
goes.
efficient.
Well, so one of my coworkers just moved there and she said her neighbor said that the neighbor didn't have the budget for the amount of candy that she would have to buy, so she was leaving.
Or the lights off and you then.
Yeah.
Yes.
Beacon Hill.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Fun. It is fun though.
It's fun.
Or wait for Alyssa to come back.
Yeah, so my kids, I have kids that are 4 years apart, and my son who loves clothes more than anything in the world. You know, first kid, I didn't do all the cool stuff. The second kid comes along, and I make all these fancy costumes, like an alligator and dinosaur. My son was so mad at me.
Yeah.
Like, you love Mickey more than me. And I thought, you know,
I know, I was never into it. Now that I have a 3-year-old, I'm like, all right.
This is the best thing ever. What's the 3-year-old gonna be?
Yeah, what's the costume?
Well, I have a raccoon for him, but he really wanted octopus, so. We're probably going octopus arrives in time.
What's that book, Bright Beautiful Creatures?
Oh,
The
yeah,
octopus?
I just started. But I think he's excited about the raccoon too. We tried to repurpose from Neighbors and my baby girl's gonna be a chicken though. She doesn't want to.
That's cute. That's so cute.
That is hysterical.
Gosh.
My favorite was my daughter was little. She was a high hope, which is a, no white dwarf.
Oh,
She called herself a high hope. And she was little and we dressed her up as grumpy and she couldn't even barely talk. You need to make her grumpy face.
Oh,
That's
perfect.
hysterical.
And that's the most fun.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that. That was
When
so
kids get into it.
Yeah,
I think it's fun.
Here comes
Here, let
Alyssa.
me get decorations.
Okay, let's continue and
Yes.
thanks a lot.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next.
All right, so next we are talking about biking. So as I mentioned, we did the bicycle level of traffic stress analysis for all the streets in Concord. Identified high stress locations and kind of in the background are looking at, okay, hey, it looks like if you address some of these locations that are showing up in yellow and in red and make it safer to have folks share the road or somehow address biking in those locations, you could start to see some east-west links emerge and some north-south links emerge. So that was one of our main recommendations, is to look at a whole menu of options, right? To your point, you can't fit everything on every street, so there are different ways to tackle this and make it safe and more comfortable to bike. Look at expanding bicycle share, installing new bike racks, and working on those Route 2 crossings once again.
Okay, can I pipe up?
Please.
Okay, so here's my hand now. So I think what's missing is basically that when you think about connectivity, you have to think about bike and pedestrians, multi-use paths, that. There's a great, when you go back to your thing that had the bicycle level stress, okay, right there. So you can kind of say that there's level 1, maybe level 2, level 3, level 4 roads, but also users. And what I wanted to define was the same for pedestrians and give you some examples where it really didn't work out well. So you have high risk, and this is like my dad with a walker. And it really can't deal with a shared use path without a separate path. And I don't think that exists really anywhere in town. And then there's a lot of stuff in the middle, you know, wheelchair user, daycare kids or families. And they kind of want some restrictions, shared use path, but something about speed limits or bike dismount areas. And then there's runners, and they're fine. They can go run alongside with Bruce Swimming Rail Trail, no problem. What happens in some examples of where, because there isn't a separate path, there isn't a fine corridor, there isn't any rules that people find, bikes crowd out pedestrians. And the perfect example is Junction Park in West Concord. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. It was designed maybe 10 years ago. Terrible design. Nobody ever decided where the Bruce Swimming Rail Trail would go through. And we're paying the price now. We have put up signs that say, please dismount. We have put up signs that said, Bruce Swimming Rail Trail turns left. And they make absolutely no difference. They, bikes don't dismount. They don't use the official path, and they say, well, we don't see anybody. And that's because the vulnerable users have stopped using. That people from Concord Park, seniors and walkers, used to go from Concord Park to West Concord Pharmacy with their walkers. They don't anymore. We have a letter from the head of Concord Park, this is like maybe 5 or 7 years ago, saying our seniors don't feel safe. It is not because bicyclists are, you know, purposely making seniors feel upset, you know, unsafe. It's just that people mounted on a bicycle, if you're on a walker and you fall and you're gonna break your hip, you're not gonna do it. And the same with Concord Children's Center. They used to bring their kids to that big kind of round stone wall. They don't anymore. Because kids are unpredictable and, you know, who knows what they're gonna do. They just didn't want to have that stress. So Junction Park is the after of inadequate multi-use path, I don't know, strategy.
Design.
Yeah, design. And reformatory brands could go the same way. It's not just people, it's also wildlife. It's right next to Great Meadows Wildlife Refuge. And there's not only people who want to have nature walks, Peter Alden has bird walking tours there. There also is this little thing called the Blanding Turtle that walks across the path and doesn't know that it's a path and will get squashed, not because bicyclists mean to, but because they simply can't see it. So those are the conflicts. So to me, if you say you want bike connectivity, and this is when I go, no, that's not the point. The point is safe shared use. So if you want to have shared use paths so people can go from point A to point B, don't just say connectivity, because what will happen if I said that in a car in the road, you know, cars win every time. If you say that in a shared use path, bikes, especially e-bikes, will win every time. So I'd say connectivity is a word I wish that you would downplay and use instead safe shared paths for all users.
Or, yeah, or the safe efficiency and safety for the multiple modes. Another important thing to consider too is that there are cyclists who would much rather go somewhere where there are no pedestrians. And you know, I mean, and we have a lot of visitors who are coming into town from far away, and anyway, but it's complicated, I think. Yeah, and I do think that the idea of shared use is the shared use is the cover of a very thick book.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I really think so.
So I'm an economist by training, and shared use usually means nobody gets what they want. Okay, that's like, it's suboptimal, just by definition. So I think that's why people don't like it, is that nobody quite gets what they want. But I think that that's what's important in a public sphere.
Totally.
Not that everybody's unhappy, but
Okay,
sometimes
so
that's
I
compromise.
would like us to move
Okay, sorry.
rapidly. There's one other thing on the agenda later that I'd like to get to, and it's not sure how long it is, and I want to have some public comments at the end, and still end in 50 minutes. So if we could see what we can do in the next 20 minutes, that would be great.
Sure.
let's work.
Yeah, we
on
only have a couple more sections.
Yeah, okay.
I did just want to ask, because, you know, a lot of this feedback has been about the trails.
Mhm.
When you look at Concord's on-street bike network, that is not a thing. So we did this, like, as in you don't have one. We did this
Well, we
level
don't,
of traffic
we
stress
don't have
analysis.
any, we basically don't have signage or indication or
Right.
markings of any kind, et cetera. We have a lot of use patterns, current use patterns,
Yeah.
and probably desired use patterns, and
Yeah.
then we have these conflict and danger areas, right?
Totally. So I think my question, and you all can be a huge help here to us, is does this methodology, looking at streets this way, given that you're operating in a constrained environment where, like, you know, it might be very, very challenging to go in and put in beautiful protected bike lanes on every street, looking at potentially a mix of tools to implement on your on-street network to increase the ability to get around town safely on a bike.
Sure, that makes sense theoretically. I think what's useful is to actually try to apply that on some specific areas in town
Mhm,
and see what we learn,
mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Because it's a challenge.
Totally, yes, but I think even just hearing that it's useful is helpful, right? Because
Yeah, no,
there,
I
you
think,
know,
I think
there's
it's
different
the
takes
thing
on
that's
biking.
been missing that we haven't done.
Right.
Which
Yeah.
is that we've got to just say, there's this area, Monument Square is one of them.
Mhm.
There is area, we've got to come see what happens if you try.
Mhm,
And the reason I mentioned
Right.
Monument Square, it's historic, the
mhm,
traffic pattern is weird.
mhm.
You know, bicycles are there in droves, pedestrians are there in droves,
Mhm.
automobiles. But, you know, pick a couple of stretches of roadway
Mhm.
and see what's possible.
Yeah, I think experiments and pilots and evaluation is testing things and getting public input is a good tool.
You'll get the best
Great.
public input when you're doing it in a neighborhood where the neighbors, you know, get organized and give you feedback.
Mhm.
And, you know, you try something short term.
And the Historic
Try something
District
else.
Commission.
Or
and the
historic,
resources.
you know.
Yes.
I really agree. I think it's kind of use cases or, you know, try something and, you know, how many monument squares do we have around town?
Yeah.
And then make them representative of larger problems.
Reversible, relatively low cost experiments are.
I think experimentation is a great idea,
Great.
You can do a lot with paint and planters and.
but we tried that as well.
Those tools are getting better too, like there's, this is probably a thing that was not crystal clear, but there's these little armadillos, which are, they're like little pieces of rubber that are just, to your point, like just a few inches tall, but, towns have been piloting using those instead of the long white flex posts, because they do kind of stop cars, but they're less prone to flopping over
Oh.
and being cracked off, and they're kind of less visual clutter, yeah, so
Okay.
temporary improvements are getting better.
Mm.
All right, so two more sections. This one is, you know, focused on the pavement upgrades, the asset management plan. You all have this on the books for the next 5 years, heard the feedback that you would like this process to continue. But what's nice about this is the roadways have been classified into different types of maintenance and or rehabilitation that they would need. And that also offers the opportunity to implement some of these other things that we're talking about, right? Whether it's even just like, it could be as fancy as transit priority, it could be as low key as just kind of restriping things to slow things down. And so our recommendation is to continue to integrate these two efforts, the asset management plan and this kind of more long-range overarching strategy that we're working on here today. So any thoughts on feasibility or impact? I mean, feasibility, what's nice is you've already funded at least the roadway infrastructure portion of this. The sidewalk portion, I believe, is yet to be funded. But thoughts on impact of pursuing kind of upgrading the roads?
Yeah, just the same as with the roads, you've got to make sure that there's a long-term model for commitment to maintaining them.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what the bond issue was brilliant in terms of explaining why that actually we're spending money up front means the long-term maintenance is only $1 million, $2 million. And so, I mean, this section, I think we, you know, should be really happy about.
I think the fact is on the sidewalks, there was a lot of pressure to develop sidewalks over the past couple of decades. There was never any attempt to put in maintenance funds to maintain them. Right? And there
It's
is
not
one-
as cool.
There is one sidewalk that has 5 utility poles in the center of the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Yeah, historical.
Yeah,
Rebecca,
one is
I
surprising.
apologize. I just noticed you have your hand up. I hope it hasn't been up too long.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, it's fine. Thank you. Thanks, Mark. So, one of the things I wanted to mention related to the sidewalk feasibility question is, I did hear at some point from a town engineer that the funds to fix, and I don't know if this is going to sound familiar to you all, just based on your discussions with town staff, but the funds to fix sidewalks would be $6 million, and the funds to add sidewalks where sidewalks are missing would be $13 million. And so the reality is, especially as we look at, 10% of the 25 million that we just got for road repair, is the prioritization is really the big challenge, because sidewalks alone could eat all of the money up that we even have for safety and infrastructure improvement. So I wanted to flag that. I also just had a general question for Stantec, because you guys came in with a very specific grid of for feedback of what you were hoping to get from us. If some of us would still like to fill in that grid and submit it to you for consideration, is that still helpful, or have we moved on from that? I just want to clarify that.
Thank you, Rebecca. It would be super helpful if folks have time to hear from you. If you don't have time, that's okay. But just wanted to give you I know this is a lot to take in and can be challenging, so I wanted to give you a way to channel feedback that would be most helpful for the plan. So absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So that's a good,
Can we get-
one good option.
Is this can this be filled in electronically? Do the boxes let you fill in?
No,
Oh,
I mean, yes, if you can work Adobe, but it's not a fancy form.
Okay, let's keep.
But yeah, you can provide however.
Let's keep marching along.
Yeah, so
But
the
it-
final
but-
one is.
But
is-
I'm sorry, I'm
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
interrupt one thing, but I think that combining these engineering assessments with crash data and ideally some volume usage data, and to help prioritize things, because I know one of the things, it's not visible here, staff works with things, gas company and other utilities, because the right of ways of where all the utilities are, and they try to not have to tear up a new road 6 months later because somebody needs to repair a gas line, et cetera. So there are a lot of interacting things, and the more interacting things we can kind of put together, and I know staff does this big time, Public Works, but adding in appropriately the safety and mobility priorities into that, current and future in an effective way would be very good.
Yeah, and again, I really,
Mechanism to create.
sorry,
Yeah.
get
No, I'm
excited.
sorry.
I just get
Sorry.
excited about your asset management plan because I think it's very unique in that.
Oh.
So it was led by Stantec, and so that gave us the opportunity. It's not us, right? We're planners, so that was engineers, and it gave us the opportunity to say, hey, engineers, we came to town, we talked with people, we heard what their priorities are. Can you build this into your asset management prioritization? And so again, like it's built on, there's an overview of it here, but looking at like the actual infrastructure, but also things like people told us they wanted the infrastructure closer to train stations to be better. And so
Mhm.
that, if you were
Yeah.
closer to a train station, you get a point. If you're close to a school, you get a point. And if you're close to a high crash location, you get a point. And so that kind of like multi-layered matrix helped elevate
Yeah.
the prioritization in the asset management plan, which again is very unique and very cool. But it's only for the next 5 years. And so part of what we're looking at is, how do you bake it in? And I think one of our big recommendations would be to continue
Mhm.
using these
Mhm.
criteria.
And to your point, we have started analysis looking at where like so I guess going back to the pavement plan,
Mhm.
the roads that you have the most opportunity to change to increase safety are gonna be with the structural and the base rehabilitation, so like that
Mhm.
red and that orange.
Mhm.
And we've started to intersect our analysis with like the traffic stress and the crashes to see kind of where those intersections, if you're gonna be doing restriping and repaving, here are like the top crash intersections, here are like
Okay.
the segments of streets that you can put the safest bike lanes on.
That's great. I would suggest if from MassDOT or anybody, or the federal highway there's ways to map out the density of traffic, which again, there would be pre-COVID, COVID and post-COVID, very different. But that might also be informative in terms of the mobility functionality and the challenges, you know what I mean? Because then if, I mean, from different viewpoints, the automobile traffic is the enemy, or the automobile traffic is what really is 80% of our transportation. But knowing where it goes through the town is helpful, you know, where it exists.
Okay, so our final section here is just about coordination. So opportunities for coordination, both within town, right? And then also with other agencies that manage infrastructure that impacts everybody in town. So this, sorry, should have numbered these, but didn't want to imply a ranking, but the fourth bullet, the town is embarking on a process to develop a more systematic way to deal with safety requests. There's a lot, you know, over the last couple of years, federal funding for Safe Streets for All plans has resulted in quite a lot of readily available research and ways to integrate safety into kind of a more of a townwide effort. There's opportunities to coordinate with partners. So again, thinking back to that rubric where we started this, you know, do any of these strike you as more impactful or more feasible?
Well, Les, the fifth bullet on infrastructure that's a nice thing, but it's got, in my mind, it's got very little to do with the problem we're trying to solve in transportation. And I think it shouldn't be there.
Okay.
Not as part of our thing for transportation.
Yeah, I think the integrate transportation demand management to zoning development is interesting because, for example, a story was related to me by someone who used to live on Long Island, where a developer of a large apartment complex agreed after negotiations to provide bus shuttle service to the train. You know, et cetera. So these kind of collaboration, we have large employers in town that could be part of a funding mechanism for bus shuttle service to the trains or between the zones.
I think Emerson Hospital used to have a bus, I don't think they do it anymore, to Framingham, where a lot of their employees came from. So sometimes it's, you know, I think talking to regional employers is really important. Because they have skin in the game in terms, you know, Concord Academy kids are coming on the bus, or on the train rather. So
we are wrapping up a plan with Watertown right now, and they have leveraged new developments to do exactly that, create a transportation management association, developers pay in, and it funds a couple of fixed route shuttles. The challenge that they're having is that initially the developer said, cool, we'll fund the shuttle, but it's only for our users. And so, you know, now the town is trying to work with them to think about, hey, can we open this up to the public? But absolutely, I think that's a really good
It's better to
mechanism.
get them to put money in a pot.
Right.
Yeah,
Always.
but there are many models, and there's ways to maybe do pilots, and I think it's I don't know, I think a lot of the public is supportive, and there's a lot of need, and there's a lot of interest, and we have to.
So just like a
Incredible.
temporary short-term solution for transportation, a road safety problem, a trial on public transit. I mean, the trolley was a grant from the visitor center. And so that was meant to be visitors coming from the train station to the various historic sites in town. And the grant ran out, so it stopped. But that would be, you know, the idea of like, okay, try that and do it between, you know, whatever the hot spots are, so that I can take my recycling and go take it to the grocery store without putting it in my backpack or grabbing it from the bike.
I think pilots, to Elisha, pilots are only useful if they're part of the plan that says how you're gonna do it after the pilot.
Yeah, if it's successful,
If
how
there's
do
funding,
you
right?
maintain
If you
it?
don't do that, why bother?
With regard to preparing for the November 19th, one thing is, you know, you have the assessment of comfort of cyclists on different paths, roadways. It might be good to kind of make it easy for people to you know, validate that or invalidate that or refine that in an easy way from the cyclist point of view. And another thing complementary would be to say, at these intersections, which intersections in town do you feel dangerous crossing as a pedestrian? In other words, if you specifically prime those questions
need-
at the input, because otherwise you're getting a lot of random responses, which is great. But by coalescing them is difficult, but if you actually had things that say the most dangerous pedestrian crossings, most dangerous cyclist crossings, most dangerous automobile crossings in town, put what your bullet is. Anyway, it's just a thought.
Yeah.
Cause it's sort of pre-sorted a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, channelizing that input. That's what we have today. So to Rebecca's
Great.
point, if you all would like to share these sheets with us, I guess my only ask would be if you could do that within the next week or so,
Sure.
because we are sort of sprinting toward November 19th.
And if you want to send them directly to me, I can share them.
Oh,
With Stantec, yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
send
you
to
just send it to me directly with the.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
And I know, Mark, I don't know how you want to do questions after this. I'll leave it to you, but I did want to thank the committee for your input. I really appreciate it. And we understand that this is a lot to digest. We've gotten to spend weeks with it and you got to spend today. So
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
And it's really good to see see it coming together.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we appreciate your being here in person also. I prefer it much to the little picture on the
Absolutely.
screen.
Yes, yes.
Much better communication.
Public comment.
Okay, all right, we have one, okay, I'm gonna allow 10 minutes for public comment, maximum 2 minutes each.
And you have one online too.
Okay, oh, all right, okay, Tanya, go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't raise my hand.
I'll
but I
get to
was
Adrian
here.
and Gina.
I was just going to request that you do take public comment.
Oh, okay, thank you.
For these people.
Okay, all right,
I mean, I do have.
do you have a public comment? Do you want to wait a second, because
What?
okay, go ahead.
Yeah,
2 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, no. I am Bela, 62 Prescott Road, Mark's wife.
Call this.
I appreciated Rebecca's comment about there being, some, differences of priority in town, that some people are pushing for more public transit and other people are more interested in bicycling infrastructure improvements, and I think both are very important. Public transit helps everyone, and in all weathers, like Ellen pointed out. Bicycle infrastructure is good for present and future users, and so that's also important, and safety is important. I just want to say that, other than the fact that the point made that it is difficult for pedestrians to feel safe in high-speed bike locations, and therefore perhaps to distinguish better pedestrian safety and bike safety and not always put them in one group. To also keep in mind, that the decisions that the town has made, in particular about the reformatory branch trail, I know there are certain groups and people in town, as well as MAPC, that wants to see it as part of this network. On the other hand, there are other ways to make other roads safer for bicycles. Town has passed a request, in a town meeting, a decision to ask everyone who takes care of the RBT to keep it natural, keep it as is. It is functional as is. It is an important nature walk place. So those votes should be also in your considerations. And lastly, I do think that there are options with the existing streets. Some of them can be made one way. I have been thinking if somebody worked on getting some one-way car traffic on some of them, that might open the way for two bike lanes, different roads, like Cambridge has done in certain locations. Thanks.
Thank you.
2 minutes,
Okay.
2 minutes and 1 second.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, Adrian, online. Adrian, can you hear me? Can you unmute?
Is that
go
better?
ahead.
Can you hear me?
Now we
Sorry
can
about
hear you.
that.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, on slide 16, there was some reference to the Reformatory Branch Trail not being connected to some kind of bike, comfortable bike, something or other to be suitable. I'm like, what is it supposed to be connected to? What are we trying to connect the Reformatory Branch to? It's a mixed use path. It's not a bicycle path. You can get on it at different points. So I kind of got a little lost, and maybe it's just me. If so, that's fine. I just didn't really understand what it was trying to say on that. And I do enjoy it as a mixed use path, but it is getting harder to enjoy, much to the members' point on the TAC board that said, you know, when it's pedestrians and bike sharing, and they're coming from out of town, as a pedestrian, I feel less and less safe on the path each year as it is, never mind any changes that may be proposed in the future.
Yeah, I think that's good feedback. What we meant by that was just that you have these two high quality trails that are bikeable, that are walkable, that come into town, and then in between them, the streets get quite uncomfortable for bikes in some locations and potentially uncomfortable for people walking as well. So trying to look at ways that we could better connect those two. So for example, if you either wanted to use them for travel or even just for a more recreational trip, you would have the ability to do that.
Okay. Okay, I mean, yeah, I mean, the only thing I see about that point, sounds like we're skirting the issue a little bit, so I'll just put it out there, is that the crossover at Route 62, Bedford has a lot of great lights for crosswalks all over Bedford, and they just refuse to put one there that would really make it ultimately safe, very visible, and get everybody to stop where they're supposed to stop. And I don't know why the town doesn't want to move forward with it, but it seems to just be a bone of contention that simmers beneath the surface all the time from what I can hear at different meetings.
Your two, thank you, Adrian. Yeah. your
Yep,
2
thank
minutes
you.
are up.
Yep.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Do you want to have Stantec respond to comments or just get as
I-
many comments? as you
I think in this case, within the 2 minutes, it was all within the 2 minutes, so I allowed it. Gina, would you go ahead? Please
And please state your name and address.
state your name and address. Okay.
Yeah, Gina Stark, 512 Thoreau Street.
Go ahead, Gina. Thanks.
Yeah, so this is a big project and you guys have done a lot of research. I just wanted to kind of chime in on two things. One, like all this discussion on where to start, what to do. I haven't really heard a whole lot about the data that Concord does have. I mean, there's a lot of there are many traffic calming requests. As you know, Mark even mentioned a couple that came through at the beginning of the meeting. And I thought I'd make the suggestion that, well, one, it seems obvious to start from town centers and work outward, because that's where the bulk of the activity in town is. And two, why don't you use some of the data that you do have? You know, the police, I guess, that's where the traffic calming request goes to first, I guess. Concord PD, that's where mine went first. I don't know. So just throwing that out there that the town already probably has some very valuable data. And then the second, which kind of coincides with what I just said, is that this is going to be really hard to manage if the town doesn't have a specific traffic calming policy and recognition, I guess, of concerned residents in a specific response to the problems that are out there. I mean, it's said over and over again that you know, the residents know where the problems are, yet I have been working on my traffic calming issue on Thoreau Street for over a year. I have sent new,
Gina, I'm sorry, so that's 2 minutes. Are you gonna be able to come to the hybrid meeting this afternoon at 4 p.m. At
Maybe.
the townhouse? If you can, because that's probably going to be the best answer to how public input is going to be taken more quickly and expeditiously and put into action. Did you want to say something, Alyssa, quick?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, that's, good feedback. There is the roadway and traffic safety forum scheduled today at 4 p.m. And that is really just gonna directly address, Gina, your comment about how do the requests by the public get handled? How are they handled by staff? What is the vetting process? And, review of those requests. So that is gonna be, outlined today with a proposal for how that is gonna move forward.
Okay.
Going forward, what is the process
Yeah,
gonna be?
Yeah,
'Cause
and
it-
that's posted
that
on
is-
the town webpage.
Yes,
and
then
everything.
that'll,
Okay, moving right along. Kristen, you can unmute and have 2 minutes to provide a public comment.
Hi, Kristen Tollfree, 13 Derby Street. And I just wanted to say that I'm feeling really disheartened by the TAC's inability to support people who want to be able to bike year round. And I'm not feeling support from the TAC. I bike year round, and I do all of those 2.3 miles. All of those quick 2.3 mile trips I do by bike. And I am not the only person in this town who does it. And I am not the only person who would like to be able to do this. I think there are people who would do this more if there was better infrastructure. And I feel like that issue came up and you were very quick to change the subject to something that is going to be very difficult to implement in Concord. The public transit it's expensive. It's going to get it's going to be difficult to get people on board. Biking is a lot easier. I mean, I know there are people who cannot choose to bike, and I'm not anti-public transit, but the fact that you, in the conversation regarding biking and commuting by bike, it was very quickly changed to, well, we really should be focusing on public transit first, which just feels backwards to me. And I think that I just wanted to say that I'm not really feeling the support from TAC right now for people who want to be able to commute safely by bicycle around Concord. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment, Gina. Kristen, I'm sorry. Gina was the previous one. Okay, thank you, Kristen. Daniel, if you unmute, I'll take your comment as the.
Yes, I'm in my car actually, so can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly.
Yeah, so so this is a question really for Stantec.
Oh, yeah.
Just wondering if,
Daniel,
yes?
Can you state your name and address, please?
Yeah, Dan Stapleton, 20 Conant Street, West Concord.
Thank you.
Yeah, so my question is really about whether in identification of the issues, whether sort of the overall traffic volume relative to the capacity based on our roadway network and the functional classifications of those roads was considered. And I'm asking really in the context of a lot of the data that came out of the Jacobs study that was done for the town in 2019, and really the identification that, since so many of your issues start with the overall traffic volume relative to our capacity, my interpretation of that study was it was pretty clear that a large percentage of our traffic is non-destination or non-origination traffic in Concord. In fact, I was under the impression that if it was only Concord dealing with Concord traffic, we probably would not, we would have a lot more opportunities to do other things. But we have a significant volume, going south and east in the morning and north and west on the in the evening. And that contribution of excess traffic that again is not destination traffic. It's literally just using our town as a cut through. If that's been considered as an issue. I don't know if Stantec collected traffic data as part of the study, but certainly the Jacob study did have some pretty good data. And just to give you a kind of close here with a personal example, I live on Conant Street, which is used as a cut through street, but it's a functional class 7 street, so it's a local street. Very narrow lanes. And it's really based on its functional classification is intended to support about maybe 7,000 trips per weekday, maybe up to 700 per weekday, maybe up to 1,000. And we have about 3,500 to 4,000 trips per weekday. And 2 to 3% of those trips are trucks. And again, these are non-destination trucks because these are not trucks servicing the area. These are the majority of those 100 or so trucks are merely cut through. They're bypassing a lot of the stoplights on Route 2, and they're just using the town as basically as a cut through. So
thank you. Then I have to cut you off. But thank you very much for your comment. I appreciate it.
People in the room too.
Okay, all right. Okay, I'll take a couple more. Go ahead.
Sure. Linda Neiman, 59 Mallard Drive. I'm also co-coordinator of Mothers Out Front. For those of you who don't know, Mothers Out Front is an environmental group focused on a livable climate for children. And we've been working with residents to address, to actually advocate for safety for pedestrians and for bicycle users. And because we really want to encourage people to get out of their cars, not get rid of their cars, but get out of their cars whenever they can. And huge impediment to that is the fact that people do not feel safe. Even when they do have sidewalks, parents are afraid to let their children walk to school on the sidewalk for fear of a car coming up on the curb, which has happened in Concord multiple times and striking their child. And I wanted to, first say thank you to Stantec. This report is really great. I know it was a lot of work for you to put it together, and I really appreciate that. And I want to stress, the low stress, not just bicycle riders, but low stress walkers. Like I said, there's sidewalks where people don't feel safe. So there are low stress folks, typically parents and children. We also wanted to promote non-car activity for kids to give them independence, get them off the screens, the thing that we're all struggling with as parents, and avoid having to drive your kid to every soccer game, every play date. If they could play organically like we used to do and just like ride down the street and see if Johnny can come out and play. I wanted to say that I want to make sure that this is a great report, but I'm hearing from the TAC members already a pulling back from the vision because it's too hard. It might cost too much money. And I think, and Mark had pointed out, we shouldn't pull back because it costs a lot. I think we should keep that vision in mind. And if it's difficult, then that's something we can work toward over time. And I wanted to talk about the public transit. I think it's great that, we're working on public transit, but it may fail if we can't get ridership. And how do you get ridership? You have to get people onto a bus, right? But people are not going to ride a bus if they're already driving everywhere. But if they're biking, walking already in town and they want to get to West Concord, then they might take the bus. But if they already drove there, they're just going to get in their car and then drive back over. So I think working on this vulnerable user, increasing that would have the knock-on effect of being a benefit to public transportation efforts.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Identify yourself and.
Yep, Jeff Helms, 55 Highland Street. Thank you, Stantec team, for the great report. I wanted to point out, and I've got some handouts here for TAC members, the number of town reports that have called for increased safety and connectivity for cyclists and pedestrians, but these actually particularly focus on cyclists. The 2015 Open Space and Recreation Plan, the 2018 Complete Streets Policies, the 2018 Envision Concord Long Range Comprehensive Plan, the 2020 Climate Action Resilience Plan, the 2024 Recreation Facilities Master Plan, and the 2024 Community Health Needs Assessment Report.
Can you speak up a little louder?
Yep.
I just want to make sure everybody.
And there was a 1995 Concord Bikeways Task Force that called for increased connectivity for cyclists. So for 30 years, the community's been asking for safer, more connected cycling. There were a couple comments we should increase, and it's in the report here, I think it's appropriate, but increase the bike share. I don't think lack of bikes is the issue, right? It's that people don't feel safe going across town. I rode 2 miles from West Concord. In the morning, I beat all the cars here. I'm not a fast cyclist, but there's such traffic in town that I got here faster than if I would have driven. But it's really dangerous, right? It's a stress level 4 to get across them. So most people are not going to take that ride. I'm sensing the same sort of hesitance, resistance, approaching skepticism from the TAC about our ability to achieve these long-stated community goals. I appreciate Mark's statement to look at bold solutions, don't be afraid of those, lean in. And the community is looking to TAC to do this. This has been stated by every committee in town in these long, facilitated reports, and we need to get it done. So I'm happy that this conversation has happened, report is happening, conversation is happening in the report on the 19th. I'd ask Stantec to also, in addition to the level of stress analysis based on road width and traffic, to use the 19th and other elicitation efforts to identify the real pain points, slip lanes, difficult places where coming across town, you have to get across the turn lane to get into the go straight lane, and it's just dangerous. Thank you.
I have to stop it now, but please, everybody who has made a comment or would like to make a comment, please, please feel free to write to TAC. There's an input page on the TAC website. You can send it to staff, or if you have our addresses to us. Yeah, please identify yourself. I'll take one more public comment, and then we have some business to complete.
My name is Shelley Carlin. I'm at 60 Walden Terrace, but I'm here on behalf of the Climate Action Committee. As a representative here, and I was wondering for this information, if you were considering the projected emissions impact on the structural changes for that you're going to implement for non-automotive users. For example, if you have more people taking these pedestrian trips, are you considering the carbon reduction for those suggestions? And the question is, are you considering the embodied carbon in from increased infrastructure in your calculations for your final?
Would you like us to?
You want to give a quick answer?
Yeah. So, we're not doing any specific emissions calculations as part of this plan effort. In as much as that's baked into a lot of your community goals, I think that's how we're screening a lot of these ideas, right? Will they move you closer toward reducing emissions and traveling in a more sustainable way? But there's not a specific calculation that's part of this scope.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to thank representatives from Stantec very much. Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it. Very helpful. I appreciate your being amenable to modifying the presentation order, and I hope you've gotten some good input, and hopefully I encourage the public and TAC members to keep providing more input for this study. It's very important.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. And the best way to do that is on November 19th. So this document is not ready for public prime time or anything like that. So we appreciate everybody's time today. But on November 19th, we'll be ready to talk more about it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to ask TAC members about the next agenda item, which is we had a statement of TAC charge and functions that Rebecca drafted, and then Mitch drafted some revision, and it's been distributed and posted. Do we want to perhaps postpone discussion of that in detail to a further meeting, given that we're close to the end of allotted time? What's another thing?
I'm a bad person.
You didn't look at it? Okay.
I did, but I didn't do anything.
Okay, if no one minds putting it off, I will, move it, table it till the next meeting. Or the next meeting, or one of the next two. Does that sound okay, Rebecca, to you? Okay, good. All right, then, liaison observer comments. Paul, would you like to, make some comments? Thanks.
No, good meeting and lots to think about. It's there's a ways to go between now and finalizing the report, but I think the comments today, especially from the public, on focusing the report on specific recommendations, I think we need to head in that direction. I've sent my comments to you, Mark, and Alyssa separately, but I think it's a great meeting. I have no further comments.
Okay, and those are comments to pass on to Stantec?
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, Pat, did you, liaison?
Yeah,
comment?
I'll just say this is great. I think this kind of study and getting as much data and broad-based data as we can get to make decisions is really critical. So I applaud TAC for pulling this together and Santec. And we can just keep moving forward, but with as much real data as we can get. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Okay, is there any further public comment on a different subject or from someone who hasn't spoken? If not, I will. Oh, yes. Oh, okay. Oh, please. Yes, Stefan, identify yourself and your location of residence.
Stefan Bader, 7 River Street. 3 quick points. I want to say I appreciate the tax committee members' work on this project. And I find that often, as is often the case, most of my questions have been asked by the members of the committee. So that just shows me that you're working hard and giving this long and considerate thought. I especially like the comment about upfront addressing the areas that are just not going to be addressed.
Mm.
Identifying them and just putting it out there. For example, Strawberry Hill Road will never have a bike lane. And so as long as we respect trees and stone walls, it ain't gonna happen. And I think it's worth calling that out and putting that out and taking it off the table literally. And then my other comment is a question about prioritizing car access. Another place that was not specifically mentioned, but that's school drop off. And as long as we make it easier for parents to drive their kids and pick their kids up, they won't use the bus. And if we make it difficult enough for parents or caregivers or whoever's doing the driving, siblings, to drive and make it easier for bicyclists and pedestrians to get to school, that might help to incentivize changing habits.
Thank you, Stefan. Thank you very much. Okay, so with no further business, I will adjourn today's TAC meeting. Thank you, everybody.